pleased to report that the first term of Tennessee Polytechnic Institute is well underway. We have enrolled 199 students to date, and I feel sure you could not find a more satisfactory student body anywhere.
These are stories of Tennessee Tech. On September 14th, 1916, area schools are closed so that students and teachers can attend the opening day ceremonies of Tennessee Polytechnic Institute. The train from Nashville brings the governor and other dignitaries. A local newspaper editor estimates that nearly 5,000 people are on campus that day and writes, "No town has brighter prospects than Cookeville." Every classroom, lab, office, and library fits into one building. There's a dormitory for men and one for women. Students tend a 20-acre farm growing food to cook in the school cafeteria. In Tech's first year, 15 faculty members teach 362 students. Already, the new school is bursting at the seams.
We are teaching classes in the parlors of the dormitories, in bedrooms, and even in the furnace room of the main building. We should have an auditorium to seat at least 1,000 people. Otherwise, on many of our public celebrations, we shall not have seating capacity for visitors. Before our epidemic of measles this year, some of the students had to stand to give visitors their seats.
In the 1920s, enrollment jumps to 1,000. Another dormitory is built. Science and technology classes move out of the administration building when the first 2 academic halls are built. Students still work in the gardens and cafeteria. Boys help build the school's first gymnasium. Student spirit is taking shape. The school newspaper, the Oracle, holds a contest to pick a school mascot. The Golden Eagle wins. Purple and gold are the new school colors. They represent campus wildflowers.
I remember those lovely fields of daisies, where all the new buildings are now, and the tricky old wooden walks trailing from the administration building in front of the girls' dorm on the east side of the quad and the boys' dorm on the west. They were made of boards about 8 feet long that flopped up and down whenever you walked on them.
The 1930s, the Great Depression. Many students attend school until they can no longer afford to. The ones who stay and work on campus sometimes aren't paid in cash, but in vouchers for the next academic term. There are very few cars, but in all honesty, very few places you couldn't walk to anyway. Lack of funding leaves faculty fearful that the school will close. The campus grows only by 2 buildings, plus bleachers and a track courtesy of a federal work program.
It was a different world. Most of us were country folks, and we had to live on an economy. We wouldn't have started school at all if it weren't for Tech. The majority of the students who came never finished because of being in a depression. They'd get just as much as they needed to teach, and then come back in the spring and summer, and finally finish with their bachelor's degree. When I came to the Upper Cumberland, I was 20 years old. I came to preach that same year. The smallest church paid me $25 a year, and some of that had to be paid in chickens.
Summer of 1941. Tech's president gets word that one of the campus's greatest dreams, a modern library, can finally be built. But 4 months later, Pearl Harbor is bombed and all money gets diverted to the war effort. Enrollment is cut in half as men enlist. Again, there are fears that tech won't survive. Women step up. For the first time, a woman is elected student body president. Faculty and staff keep campus fires burning by offering training programs for soldiers and military staff. In the 2 years after the end of World War II, enrollment triples, and by the end of the decade, the library is finally built.
So I went to see President Derby and said I was going into the service. And he said, "I've been getting you deferred all this time." I went to the Navy office in Knoxville and applied for a commission since I had a degree, but they had very strict physical requirements. They weighed me and I weighed 135 pounds and they sent me back home. The second trip I weighed 143 and that was close. The last time I went, I was wishing for a pocket to put a rock in. The doctor stepped me up to the scale and he went right up to 149 and stopped, and my heart sank. The doctor said, "Hell, Brown, that's close enough."
Post-war technology lights up every field in the 1950s. Sputnik launches and Cuba yields to communism. The hydrogen bomb, transistor radios, robots, and satellites. Engineering enrollment reaches new heights. 9 dormitories are built, plus a new gymnasium called Memorial Gym in honor of the fallen student soldiers of World War II. At the helm is Everett Derryberry, a president with the soul of an architect and an eye for detail that is legendary.
The Tennessee Highway Patrol came to campus with a helicopter one time, and they took President Derryberry for a ride. And Ground Supervisor Frank Moss and I were standing near where they were about to land. The minute the president got out of the helicopter, he said, "Frank, there are 3 shingles missing off the roof of the gym." Frank said to me, "I hope the university never owns one of those things or he'll drive me crazy." That was typical for what this president would know.
The Cold War heats up in the 1960s and federal money pours into higher education. At Tech, it's the golden age of dormitories and academic halls. Total new construction, 23 buildings. Campus culture begins to reflect modern times with desegregation and women's rights. It's also Tech's golden anniversary when TPI becomes TTU. And a march to campus celebrates the town and gown relationship.
When my children would ask me about wearing sandals and love beads, and were you demonstrating for peace, I would say, no, we wore Basswegians and little pleated skirts and blouses with Peter Pan collars. We were college kids having fun. We knew about it. My friends and my brother went to Vietnam, but we were not particularly political. I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. There was only one TV in the student union, and it was standing room only to see what President Kennedy would do. We thought we were going to war. I was in school when Kennedy was shot. They canceled the military ball.
In the 1970s, the first new president in 34 years moves into Derryberry Hall. It's a new day with a new emphasis on research and a new instructional and research tool, the personal computer. There's another major spurt of enrollment growth. The 70s start with 5,750 students and ends with 8,000. They get a new student union, a new arena, and their own radio station, WTTU-FM, which goes on the air in 1972. Musical acts included The Temptations, Peter, Paul and Mary, Ike and Tina Turner, and there was a minor outbreak of streaking. Women wore miniskirts and men wore their hair long.
The year I was elected APO Sweetheart, the guys had a party called Casino Night. It was a tradition, and they said, "You have to dress up like a bunny." I laughed and said, "No." And they said, "No, really, you have to." So I went to my mom and I said, "Can you make me a Bugs Bunny outfit?" And well, we bought a gray sweatshirt and made ears and a powder puff tail, and when I showed up for casino night, it was hysterical. You want a bunny? You're getting a bunny. They started laughing and said, well, we should have known that's what you'd do.
It's the 1980s, and culture shifts from pop to rap, from post-hippies to yuppies, and IBM PCs face a scrappy new competitor, Apple's Macintosh. Cultural studies also change. 2 years after the Appalachian Center for Craft opens, Tech's new Performing Arts Center, the Bryan Fine Arts Building, is dedicated. Another new president comes to town, and he takes equal rights to the next level, with campus centers devoted to women and African Americans.
When I first arrived at Tech, I think the people around me understood that I had something to offer. I was 27 years old when I got here, and having not been exposed to conferences and presentations, I was invited along to see what they were doing. I was sitting on the bench. Then they said, now it's your turn. And my perspective was that I was going to score a touchdown. For the better, Tech has allowed me to become the person I dreamed I could be. As an Apple Distinguished Educator, I've traveled this country and around the world. This is a very special business we're in, teaching and affecting society at some level. And I'm very pleased that Tennessee Tech allowed me that opportunity.
The 1990s, the rise of the internet. WWW isn't related to World War, and periods are dots. Tech sends a researcher into space on the shuttle Columbia twice. It's a decade of remakes. The ASB is now the SGA. The old farm is now home to a modern agricultural pavilion. The old gym gets a sleek new counterpart, the fitness center, and old dorms are closing. More and more, women are enrolling in engineering.
I don't do what first attracted me. I don't work in paint. I saw this woman. She was a chemical engineer at Nissan. She was mixing paint, and they let me paint panels. As a 15-year-old, yay, I get to paint panels for a car, and they let me keep it. Then I saw this other lady. She was tweaking some parts of a car, and there was some problem for how the door locked. I saw what she did with the mechanism, and I said, you know what? I fix things every day at home. I change a lot of things. I put shelves together, I take apart computers. Why didn't I think of it before? This is what I like to do. Maybe mechanical engineering really is what I'm meant to do.
In the second millennium, if there isn't a Mac on every desk, there's an iPod, iPhone, or iPad in many hands. Dropboxing, texting, instant messaging, the cloud, virtual reality are reimagining how we teach and learn. We send another man into space twice, the second time as commander of the International Space Station. Enrollment breaks 10,000 and then 11,000. New dorms and the first academic halls since the 80s are rising.
I had some terrific teachers in college, but my studies combined with year-round football practice were quite difficult. I majored in electrical engineering and found out quickly that this major and college athletics were like oil and water. They don't mix well together. I can't begin to count the number of all-nighters I pulled trying to pound all that technical information into my head. I am grateful to the teachers who cared enough to take the time to inspire and prepare me for wherever life might lead. We are what we are, in large part because the people with whom we interact mold us throughout our lives. Many of my teachers motivated me, without question, because that's what great teachers do.
These are stories of Tennessee Tech, but they are not all the stories of Tennessee Tech. Every day brings more. We take this time, our 100th anniversary, to celebrate the people who came before us, upon whose foundation we build, just as people of tomorrow will build on what we have done. We mark the 100th anniversary of the date the governor signed our charter with a ceremony attended by our governor today. We mark the 100th anniversary of the week our doors opened with a march from campus to downtown, the mirror of the march to campus during our 50th anniversary. We reinterpret our past in order to reinvent our present. As we near the end of our 100th academic year, we make this pledge: to work tirelessly to move Tennessee Technological University into the next century with as much or more promise and potential as we had when chartered in 1915.